To enjoy this and other great episodes on Patreon, check out the link in the description and subscribe via the Black Kluge tier for full access to over 100 exclusive episodes. For those of you who would like some QF swag on Teepublic, t-shirts, magnets, mugs, what have you, also click on the link in the description.
Did it surprise you Allison got remarried as quickly as she did?
Yes, I did.
Did that bother you?
No. I was happy for her. But I was a little surprised.
He was saying goodbye to me, and he leaned in for a kiss, and I smiled so big that he literally kissed my teeth.
So I have admitted that I almost had a homosexual experience when I was young.
Yes.
Some guy came on to me. It was really wonderful, actually, but my mother would never tolerate me being gay. You know what I mean?
I got a guy now who's finding out the real names of the occupations of what the people do who bully me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm kind of a fighter, so... it's just interesting when people have their kids on the air.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if a kid was a fuck-up, you just keep them quiet.
I put my kids on the air more, but they want no part of it.
We do another contract here. Well, let's do a 3-hour show. We should be done right now.
Well, you're having this negotiation with me. That's the only problem.
Well, who am I supposed to negotiate with? Fred?
Tell that fat fucking cunt Robin to shut the fuck up. She can't stop mentioning that other fat cunt Butler. They're both fat cunts that need to die on fire.
I once saw my mother come out of the shower. It traumatized me.
Yeah, I can imagine. She looks like you.
She had some...
Sorry. That just slipped out.
Was you getting into music and guitar and all that stuff? Was that some kind of therapy because you didn't have your father?
Listen, there are people who are at a job too long. They're not into it. They can't admit it to themselves.
A picture of you and her looks like a kidnapping. It's ridiculous.
Oh, you see, this is ridiculous. I was going to look for a Nikki Hilton. But you see, those good-looking rich girls, they don't go for a guy like me because they don't need my money.
Recipe for a perfect date night? Home, dinner, glass of wine, and to bed. Right? What'd you say?
Definitely a bottle of wine.
I said earlier I thought it was kind of weird. Jerry still dyes his hair. Like, when your head becomes that big and, whatever.
You've got a little tough to hair.
You think the vanity would go out the window, but no.
I do have issues about people leaving. I want to control everyone in my atmosphere. I am a puppet master, and I want everyone to be a puppet.
But then we had our sex. We went right into this, like even better.
Now, was it different?
It was great because when he was on top of me, I had my hands sticking up and I was
Oh my God. And she had a very hard orgasm from that.
Because I drive into Manhattan every day and I listen to it, okay? And if you cut out the bitching, it probably would be about an hour of broadcast.
You're right. Do you want to know something? Okay.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to QF, a podcast about Howard Stern. I'm your host, Fillmore, a.k.a. Jim Fix, as always. And with me for the beginning of this particular James Joyce Ulysses tale of hack is Len Yung. How are you, sir?
I'm good. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's you're going to be quite busy for the next bit of the next couple days, so we changed our normal scheduling time. It was... guys, we did promise we're going to go into this Shuli Dabbleverse thing at some point and throw our hat in the ring, so to speak. And the only reason I was never going to do it was because Shuli was just not doing anything on his own channel. He literally was like at 1,000 views if he was lucky, and when he was just doing the Shuli podcast. And I don't know that he was arrogant in those early shows. He seemed to be very earnest and, I mean, he's still a bit of an asshole, but you certainly didn't get that big puffed up chest Shuli from those early shows, did you?
No. Now, look, I'll be quite honest with you. I didn't hang on every show. I didn't watch all of them. I did dip in and see a few. The one thing that did, I suppose, strike me was he tried to kind of transpose the Stern universe into his own show. So he came up with something called the Shoes, which is his own version of the news. He had his own version of the Whack Pack. I don't know what he called them. Where I suppose he just went out to the local area and tried to find people with physical or mental disabilities. And that's the formula. That's the Howard formula. Get them in. Well, and he's still doing that to a degree. I think he has some on the Shuli network. He seems to go after that angle still.
So what it all boils down to is if Shuli doesn't have a host, it's like Howard. There's a lot of Howard parallels with Shuli. It's actually kind of unnerving when you think about the parallels that exist between them in terms of not being able to pay people what they might deserve from this whole Shuli quote unquote network, which sometimes is a joke and sometimes isn't. But it's I think it's more telling when we play these earlier things to show his real character. And this is, we're going to cover today, for example, the how Artie versus the quote unquote hack pack. Now, Artie, of course, hack knows hack. His stand up is atrocious. I mean, he really does. Yeah. If most people will tell you, he would just do bits from the show. He would get drunk and belligerent. And I think he said at one point, listen, don't come to see me twice.
Yeah, look, it is a good example though with Artie of just what you can achieve if you're likable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because he was so likable on the show and because he was, I guess, relatable.
Yeah,
that really did transfer into selling tickets.
I think so.
And I think with Shuli, you see the other end of the spectrum there.
Yeah, and so if a lot of people want to make sure, I want to make sure they all understand. Shuli started off as a caller, then he didn't actually get into he tried to get John's job, and he came in dead last, 1.52% of the vote, I believe. Now, if you believe Chauncey's story, it was all fixed, and it was all pre-planned that they were going to hire Richard and Sal. And most likely for literally half of whatever John made, like half of each of them, they were going to split the salary. And that makes perfect sense if they were each making 40 grand in New York City, because that's what John was making when he left, like 85,000. So that would make them certainly hungry and certainly desperate.
Sure. And look, to be fair to Shuli, he didn't have, luck was not on his side in the Get John's Job contest. There was all sorts of scheduling conflicts. He couldn't get strippers, I believe, on one day.
Yeah.
So I think he really was off on. He was on the back foot before he even went into the studio. But still, he didn't. Yeah. 1.52 is. Yeah. It's not great, is it?
No, it's not. And in fact, there was one clip, because I showed you the archive, and we immediately isolated his green room sort of quip, like before he goes in. And mind you, Shuli has the shortest Howard TV episode of all the contestants. Some of them have 3 and 4 segments. Chauncey's in there, three segments worth. Cabby's got a couple. Sal's got 3 or 4 episodes. Richard's the same thing. And Shuli's got 1 segment, and that might be owning to the fact that, well, like you said, he couldn't arrange things properly. But also, he does an impression of Bobcat Goldthwait. That's like, just the fact that he's doing Bobcat Goldthwait in 2004, I think gives you a level of hack, like heretofore understood as, like, this is super cringe. You don't do that in 1994, let alone 2004.
Yeah, it's a bit like doing a Schwarzenegger impression. One of these impressions that's just done by every single stand-up comedian at some point, especially back in the 90s.
Right, and whether it's good or not is irrelevant. It was overdone, and if it wasn't overdone, it was done shitty. Sometimes both, and then just also he's not relevant. Bobcat became a director pretty much and changed careers, and he's so out of the public eye in that sense. That character, that persona doesn't even exist. It stopped existing pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he went on to direct Windy City Heat, starring Perry Caravello.
Perry Caravello, part of the Shuli Network.
Yeah, who also appears. He will appear in this later on in this Odyssey.
Yeah. And guys, so we know that when the time this is released, of course, they've already done the Potsdam. There's the Shuli Network has done a show in I was going to say Potsdam, Germany, Pottstown. I believe it's New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Pennsylvania.
Oh my God, stupid me! But I'm not American. I don't forgive me my geography woes, guys. And it was the rundown given by the guy is something we'll go through at another time. But it was a pretty much a disaster. And from what we could, yeah. And so
information is still a little bit, it's trickling through, it's scant on the ground, but what it seems to be, the setup seemed to be a bit like Bob Levy's comedy club that Riley Martin appeared at famously back in the day, where you just go to a venue and you rent it out and you put a banner on top of it and say Soul Joel's or whatever the place was. Now, my understanding was there was a funeral in the other room on the same day, so they picked the bigger room, and there was a wedding on the following day, so it was all decked out for a wedding.
Yeah. But God only knows what condition it was in when they finished with the transients that made it to the event.
Who knows?
What was really horrific was that one of the things that really just made me laugh hysterically, but it would make me fume if I was a person who paid for the quote unquote VIP tickets, was that at the end of the gig, whether you paid $25 or $40, you still got to meet and greet, and the whole idea of the VIP thing was you get to meet and greet these people, but the $25 people don't.
Yeah, look, it sounded like a shit show. Let's be honest.
Yes, absolutely, and it's ridiculous.
It's a bit like remember that fire festival? It reminds me a bit of that fire festival, where obviously on a much smaller scale, but from what I saw on Reddit, there was within half hour before the show was to start, there was people running around, panicking, swapping out cables, and there's feedback.
They started an hour and 15 minutes late, according to one report, because the audio problems abounded, and they just didn't do anything for that time. They couldn't even do stand-up during that time.
Greet then.
Yes,
do the meet
absolutely.
And greet during the hour.
Right. There's
enough. Didn't do any stand-up.
Meet and greet. You could get a life story out of the amount of people, every single person who got there, and you'd still have time to set up.
But yeah, they only did 13 minutes of Stuttering John.
Yes.
And Perry Caravello apparently brought the house down, stole the show.
Yes, and whether that's
those two things by themselves tell their own story.
Right, and whether that's because he's legitimately talented, disturbed, retarded, we have no idea. It seems to be a combination of all three, perhaps. But he definitely had a fan base that went to see him. Yeah. And the question we were talking about was, what would Shuli draw if it was just Shuli, not the network?
Well, I think we saw that he played a show recently where he did two shows. He did one in Tampa, and he did another one a few days later, and I think it was 10, 15 people.
You had enough people, only enough people there to sort of half finish a turkey. I mean, that's kind of pathetic.
Well, you think to yourself, like, the work you have to go to travel, you're paying for flights, you're paying for accommodation and whatnot, and 10 people show up.
Yep.
It's no wonder they're just sticking with webcams and super chats as a source of income.
Completely. But then my point, I guess, would be, why even bother doing these things if there's no guarantee? Like, people, you see the advanced ticket sales, just cancel. Unless you've already rented the room, you got to pay for that. So I have a feeling whatever they charged for the room rental, they probably went to that, and they all took a hit.
Yeah, I think they were committed financially to us for a certain amount, and just going through with the show would have lessened that burden. Probably, I don't think they made a profit.
Mm-hmm. And I bet Cumia wouldn't. He went in under the promise that you're not getting paid. Yeah, they might have told him you're going to get free beers or something like that, but that's about it.
Yeah, not too many, hopefully. But with Cumia, I think the idea with Cumia, Shuli probably thought this is a guy who can sell tickets, and it's clear that those days are over with Anthony. I think it's been a 10-year decline, and it hasn't. Yeah, he isn't at rock bottom yet, I don't think, sadly.
No, and so the reason why we wanted to get this one through, guys, is because, again, it's such a seminal moment in Shuli. There's not a lot of Shuli in the Stern history while it's serious, but this one was important because, well, you'll hear it for yourselves. Just the amount of sensitivity for someone who claims to be, like, having paid his dues according to him, and having such confidence. Why should it bother you if some guy who, let's be honest, is a hack calls a fellow hack a hack? So you're going to hear the arguments and anything before we start it off.
No, I'm just looking forward to hearing this. This is a classic clip personally to me. Anytime I hear Artie, it's always good.
Yes, absolutely.
Steve Langford, Howard 100 News.
The killers of comedy on the warpath. The Reverend Bob, Shuli, Sal, and Richard blowing their stacks over comments made by Artie Lang on the Raw Dog channel, reportedly calling the killers of comedy the Hack Pack.
It's a better name, you got to admit it.
It is good.
Kidding around is one thing, but is this bad for business?
No.
Oh,
Yes.
there goes Bob Levy again. He always thinks you're hurting his business.
Yeah.
Well, Bob really just think that most of the jokes are aimed at him.
I know.
I mean, it was so joking around. It's just, I mean, come on, can we grow up here?
He feels Artie doesn't have respect for what he does.
Howard, I don't want to slow you down, but Shuli's out here and he's like genuinely angry, not like fucking around angry. He's just
You can see Shuli pacing in the hallways. Pacing. It's like that scene in She's Having a Baby where there's a complication with the birth and Kevin Bacon's got his head bowed down. It's more, that's what I'm getting from it. And you can just see him in the hallways here straggling around, desperate to get in there and say his piece. But at any rate, we'll continue. I don't want to slow it up too much.
he says even though Artie says it's a joke, he always seems to take jokes at their expense.
Bring him in.
I don't understand. I mean, you know.
Let's give this a few minutes, Robin.
All right, let's see where this.
Shuli, you have your time with Artie. Go ahead.
I just want to say, you know, like, he's very nice to us. He asks us to work with him and do shows with him, and that's great. And, you know, we all bust each other's balls behind the scenes, but when he's on the air and stuff, he takes shots at us, and it's like, this is, you know, we're doing a comedy tour. It's like you're sitting there saying that basically we suck.
No,
You're trying to sell tickets.
I don't know if I said that. I mean, we all you work with me all the time. Why would I put you on the show if I think you suck?
Okay, well, we know the answer to that. We were discussing this ourselves. Yeah, go ahead.
Look, it's only a theory, and look, I'm not a comic, as Shuli would say, but I would assume that if Artie brings someone like Shuli and he gets him to open, he's probably going to make Artie look a lot funnier than if he had someone on who was, you know, maybe more of a seasoned pro.
Mm-hmm.
Shuli is someone who can he isn't outrageously bad, but he's not fantastic either. So he's just in that middle range, and I think that's probably perfect for someone like Artie.
You'd also, as Artie, and I don't think this was far beyond the scope of his reasoning, he's going to seem like a good guy to bring them along and have them at these big gigs and open up and give them, he'll pay them generously. I'm certain Artie gave all those people lots of money, more than they actually deserved. And it just occurred to me now, that might be also part of the reason why Shuli has this inflated ego, not just working on the Stern show that became Manifest Destiny, but if you're making way more money than you deserve because Artie's making so much and he's just to a fault, like way too generous and giving you money you haven't really earned, you think that's my value. That's how much I should be getting. So like Artie would eat, like over tip, that kind of thing. And years later, I think it was maybe a year or two later, Dice came in and said he had Shuli open for him in Toronto, and he fucked with Shuli on the show and what have you. And then he said, I understand there was a problem with money, Stern asked, and Dice said, no, he was asking for too much for him. and immediately that I understood that as, who the fuck are you to ask for this much? This is how much you should be getting. And the money details were not given, but you know that sounds like Shuli way overshooting it, thinking this is what Artie gives me. Why shouldn't Dice give me the same?
Yeah. Well, look, you do make a good point, which is the effect that the Stern show has on the staff in terms of their sense of self-importance and self-worth. Like, you just look at JD. I mean, this is someone who, you know, the arrogance is from the guys is always just been astounding.
Yes,
I think for the Stern show was probably the worst thing for Shuli because, and I'm just, you know, and I don't want to be too cruel here, but if Shuli had never got that job, I don't think he'd still be in comedy. I think he would have struggled for a number more years, and he probably would have just thrown towel in. Yeah, I agree. You know. I think the Stern show just enabled him to believe that he was a comedian and he could make a living out of it.
Mm-hmm. Recently, Brian Johnson from Tell Him Steve, Dave. It's part of the the Kevin Smith universe. He was like pretty much an extra, and that he parlayed that into an AMC show, Comic Book Guys or something like that, Comic Book Men. I can't remember what it was. Apparently, he has enough of a following to where it makes the Shuli network look like three guys singing at the beginning of Rocky on the street corner. And so he decided to throw his hat in the ring and start getting at them. And almost everybody in the Dabbleverse, or not Dabbleverse, in the Shuli's Anonymous thread in Reddit, they're like, he's encapsulating, and we agreed the same thing. He's saying everything we've been talking about already. He's kind of beating us to the punch. And yet, like there's not enough people saying it. There's just not enough people out there saying, Can we stop acting like Shuli is a comedian?
Yeah. And I think you'll hear it in this argument where Shuli will say something like, I am original, and I would actually pick him up on that. I'd say, I'm sorry, dude, but it's not just the originality that he lacks, right? Mm-hmm. He's not creative. So if you look at his time on the Stern Show, he never actually created anything. He worked on the news. He was I suppose towards the end of his time there, he was a whack pack whisperer. It's probably the best way of describing it. Mm-hmm. He did have a few chances when he went in, the Hurricane Sandy, which I know you've covered. We also, we know how that went. He threw Tim Sabian under the bus. He didn't have any original material. And like I said earlier, when he did go on alone, all he could do was kind of lift ideas that were in his previous job. Mm-hmm. And even, we extended out to all the way up to current day. The show that he's now, the flagship show on his own network, was an idea that he stole from Carl.
Yeah.
Who are these podcasts? So
yes,
that's a problem. You can't come up with it with your own ideas and your own. And look, he also has an issue with punchlines as well. Let's be honest.
Oh my Lord! There's one clip we'll play, guys. We've got all the clips and we'll go through them, and most of them are visual. And the punchline he decides to go with, you can tell in the process of it, he's losing faith in his own punchline, praying for time to magically speed up so he can get to the next bit. And there's this little polite golf clap applause from the audience. And he's one of, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 comics in an hour special at the Gotham Comedy Club. And it's brutal. It's one of those things where you want to disappear in your seat. You really do feel bad for the comic because it sucks. It sucks to bomb.
It reminds me of there was a great bit on Opie and Anthony years ago. Anthony Cumia came in one day and he said, last night I saw this Joe Piscopo special on Showtime. And he said, I was captivated by this thing because it's so bad.
Yes.
And they spent the next 2 hours going through the special. Florentine ended up coming in and they kept listening. And it was really interesting because Florentine was able to provide play-by-play breakdown of what's going through the comedian's head as he's delivering these lines. And he said the exact same thing you just said, where you're so terrified, halfway through the joke that you're not going to get a laugh, that you just have to barrel through and cover up all that silence with your own word, with your own speech.
Yeah. And you've committed to it. Like, you go into the bit. Yeah. Gilbert had a thing about it. He says, why did I start this bit? It never works. Why did I think it's going to work now? And now I got 4 more minutes till the punchline, and it never works. So what have I done to myself? Is this my career? And the discussion of it was funnier than the actual joke, I'm certain. But either way, we're going to go through it, guys. Sorry to be so verbose.
That's what I was asking myself when I heard you make that comment
then you
yesterday.
Might come to the conclusion that I'm joking around.
But why do you have to do it on the air all the time, man?
I'm sorry.
No, it's the same thing with Levy. A couple weeks ago, you said the same exact thing about him.
The hat pack was a new thing. I thought that was funny.
Whatever, like, it's funny. It's funny when it's
if
us
I
backstage
said it off the air,
around.
it would seem a little more serious, don't you think? I mean, on the air, I'm breaking your job.
I think there's many a truth said in jest. I think you think they're a little bit hacky.
No, I don't. I have Shuli works with me all the time.
I don't believe Artie. He knows they're hacks, and and if you say it actually off the air, it's just as bad, I would say.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and guys, keep in mind, guys, we're not going to defend Artie in the sense of like whether we think he's lying or not. I do believe he believes that they're hacks. There's no question about it. He's not willing to admit it on the air that he just thinks they're shit, and he's giving them mercy missions every time he asks them to come out, as Don Rickles might say. But Shuli does sound like a wife who just continues to nag after she's already gotten the apology, because Artie did say, "I'm sorry."
Yeah,
right.
Like I think Artie said, maybe it's in this clip, but he said, "This is how women win arguments."
That's the wrap-up show clip. We'll get to that. That's fantastic, that clip.
He's come up to me personally and said, you know, he really likes when I host his shows. He wants me to host.
And
more
how
of
do I
his shows.
show that? By hiring you quite a bit.
I understand that, but then you come around and you say that on the air. It's mixed messages. It's mixed signals, Artie. You gotta,
okay, I'm very sorry. I didn't know I had another girlfriend. I'm sending mixed signals to.
It's not a girlfriend. It's just somebody that
You're acting cunty and bitchy about it.
No,
You just are.
you know what it is? If nobody would have heard it, then it wouldn't be a joke. Like
Would
it's
it be
a
a
joke
joke?
now because somebody heard it.
Would it be a joke if Shuli went on shows and said Artie's a shitty comedian?
I don't care.
You don't?
A lot of people say that. I don't. I mean, I don't get all mad at them.
You're a comic.
I really don't take it that seriously.
You would totally care if other comics.
See, I get Shuli's point to a certain extent. Artie's got way more clout in the business than he does.
Yeah.
And if somebody like that beats down on someone way lower, it is actually kind of shitty. I do agree on that level. But if you're really, really a person who's toiled for years and years and you have confidence in your material, but you didn't get the breaks, this should fly off you like dandruff.
Absolutely. And look, a lot of this comes down to there's raw nerves here, and it's because of insecurity, because Shuli probably knows, look, we're not killing when we go out. We're struggling to sell tickets.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
this guy is just pouring salt into the wound.
Beetlejuice is getting bigger laughs than my biggest closing joke. Just by
airplane
waving.
joke.
Who, me? that one liner, he's like Henny Youngman, and he's destroying at these Killers of Comedy shows. High pitch Eric going out saying, "Hi, Daddy," is getting a standing ovation. But he's got these thought out bits from his days as a dealer in Vegas, and it's just sip.
Yeah. And then the iron sheet comes out and brings the house down.
Exactly.
Other comics went on other shows saying that you suck or
I've heard that before.
Fans aren't happy with this or that. Like,
when did I
you'd be
say
pissed.
fans aren't happy with?
I'm just saying. I'm just throwing examples out there. I'm just saying.
Honestly, you know what? Then I don't want to work with you anymore.
Well, whatever, dude. You say
now I don't want to work with you anymore.
But you
just talked yourself out of work.
It's not about work for me, dude. It's about me getting across the point that either you're with us or you don't want us with you.
I don't really think about it that much.
Well, but dude, it's kind of a shit move when you sit there and you go, "Oh, you guys want to come play Detroit with me?" And then you go, "Oh, by the way, come buy your tickets for me in the Hack Pack in Detroit."
I didn't say that. I didn't say I was in the Hack Pack.
But that's.
Artie always has some little aside that destroys me. That's what I mean. In some ways, that's what his best strengths were. Like I think I mentioned it before when Howard says something like, "I swear on a stack of Bibles." He goes, "Right, and I know how religious you are. That means a lot to me." Anyway, sorry, I had to stop it up there.
That's the kind of pitch that you throw
it's
out
only
there.
the Hack Pack when you guys are by yourselves.
Whatever, dude.
You're acting like a broad here, man. You really are.
I'm a comic. I take offense to when somebody calls me a hack.
I know. Okay, sorry, man.
Who's the funniest member of the Hack Pack, as you call
Funniest
him?
member? Well, Beetlejuice, probably. I mean,
I don't doubt that.
Is Bob
He's
funnier
on every
than Shuli?
show.
Who's funnier, Shuli or Reverend Bob?
I don't know. I got to think about that.
Oh,
I don't have an answer. There's no black and white answer to that.
but Shuli's really pissed. I can
know.
tell.
It's just frustrating, man. I've been doing stand-up 13 years. It's not like
13 years. Okay, look, I dabble. In terms of dabbling, I do open mics like once a month and not even now that much anymore, since I don't know, last 12 years or so. And I'm I'm like at this point with my old stuff, I'm totally a hack because I'm not a hack in the fact of in terms of lack of originality. It's just I just don't want to bother coming up with new stuff anymore. It's really tough to come up with really funny stuff all the time. And to me, a hack move is to rely on your old things that usually work, the old standbys, as opposed to constantly developing new things. I know it really means just coming up with fucking jokes that any third grader could write, but to me, there's multi levels of hack. So I'm on a, I don't know, an upper tier of hack, perhaps.
Well, just think it doing the numbers there. That means Shuli is now 29 years or 30 years doing stand up.
We'll say this is 2007 for the sake of argument. Okay, like 2007, and then you're adding 16 years now. So yeah, 29 years, almost exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time. That's a lot of dues.
Well, I mean, I don't imagine Bill Burr went up to Nick DiPaolo one night and said, "Hey man, you called me a hack. You said my joke was shit. Take that back." Yeah. There's and like you mentioned it, and I you hope you bring it up again because this is not a point to be lost in the shuffle. Whatever you think Shuli was a spoiled brat growing up, basically, and everybody told him his ass was shot sunshine.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to do a Dr. Drew on it.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's it's possible because sometimes I just wonder where does he get this self-confidence from, or that swagger, this kind of I'm too cool for school swagger that he has.
Right.
Part of me thinks that what he's really doing is it's a kind of a defense mechanism. And the way that he masks nerves or insecurity is with this sort of indifference.
Yeah.
So I don't really care. I'm going to wear jeans and a shitty hoodie, and
but it's fake. It's a pose. It's a pose of indifference.
Yeah. I mean, he said to that guy in St. Louis, he said, "I'm a comic, man. I'm a comic." And one guy said to me one time, he said, "I don't want you wearing jeans." When I was doing a show, a club owner said, "I don't want you wearing jeans." And I hate that shit, man. I don't like being told what to do. And that's what he said. Like, meanwhile, he's playing in front of 5 people, and and he thinks he's in a position where he can start calling the shots, or he's some kind of. I guarantee you, he put a pair of pants on.
Totally, yeah. I mean, or he just decided to go home and sulk and mooch off his parents until he could you get another fucking unemployment check back to tide him over for the next trip into the next uneventful trip to the comedy, the comedy donut in Nevada, somewhere in Nevada. I mean, the level of, I think again the Stern Show does that to these guys as well. If they get on the Stern Show, they have a certain amount of clout, they can sell those tickets, and that's an example. Like when they go on their own, they're still doing actually probably fairly reasonable sized crowds because it's also the New York area. But at the same time, New York is not Buffalo. New York is not it's not Boise. It's not Austin. You got 10 million people living in this city, some of whom will make the trudge. A different group of people. If you play enough 500 seaters, eventually they'll all see your shit and never come back. But you do that one night in I don't know, fucking Santa Monica, and then you suck. And then the next time you try to play there, no one attends. Why? Because people were told you were awful.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the things that I think one of the things that about Shuli that, and maybe I'm wrong here, it's just reading in between the lines, I don't think he really maybe fully gets the idea of a meritocracy. And you see that everywhere. We have that everywhere. Now maybe you don't see it in a civil service job or in a in the DMV or whatever, but certainly in any kind of creative endeavor, everything is about being a draw and being popular. So this idea of paying your dues, now this thing comes up so many times. They even call him the dues payer on Reddit. Brian Johnson mentioned it. He said paying your dues, whatever the fuck that
means. Yeah.
Well, my thinking of what paying your dues actually means is it's a sort of squatters' rights, length of tenure. I've been here, longer than you. Therefore, I deserve more than you do, or it's almost like there's a queue and I'm ahead of you in the queue. And unfortunately, that just is meaningless because it doesn't account for talent. It doesn't account for appeal. Doesn't account for anything else. I mean, look, you can't say to somebody, I play piano, and someone goes, well, I've been playing 5 years. How long are you playing? 4 years. Well, I'm better than you then. Yeah, but it doesn't work like that. You know,
martial arts, any kind of learned endeavor. I mean, there's certain things you can learn, absolutely, but ultimately will be down to individual skill, talent, aptitude, and then when you go into comedy, you're talking agents. The right agents take you somewhere. Connections, the city you're in. Like you're trying to make it in Chicago versus trying to make it in, I don't know, Dallas. You know, what kind of connections do you have? Are you likable? Likability, being able to get that extra little hand from some other established comic who takes a liking to you, wants to take you on the road with them. There's lots of things. And Shuli, I can imagine him turning off a myriad of comics just with his attitude and not getting those breaks.
Yep. And you talk about, you know, likability. During the Hurricane Sandy saga, we saw that he went all in. He bet the house. He said, look, he made a conscious decision that when he had a shot at the Artie chair, he was going to trash his co-workers.
Yep.
Because he didn't care. He thought they're collateral damage for me getting this gig.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it didn't go that way.
No, it didn't.
And I think it's very clear Gary from that day on probably had a big issue with him. And they did have a fight. About 5 years later, they had a big on-air bust-up.
And believe me, we'll go through that.
Gary
as well.
called him a cunt. Yeah, Gary called him a cunt. Yeah.
That was wonderful to have two subhumans fighting with each other. The one thing I will say, though, when you mentioned earlier about the whole dues paying thing, I think the only way it works when you start talking about that is when someone has finally made it and then they discuss the dues they paid trying to get to that point. That's when you can discuss that as some kind of, not even a meritocracy. It's more along the lines of, this is how I got going. And I made it, but he is not George Jefferson. He is not moving on up. He's reliant still on the kindness of, you know, other people to work for almost nothing and trust him in some capacity to do the right thing by them. And we clearly see that's not the case. The Ray DeVito in this latest thing just said, look, I didn't get paid. I had to pay for my own hotel. They said there'd be a hotel for me. Again, the information's trickling in. We don't know exactly what the full truths are, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit because Scott, that Shuli shorted this guy Ray DeVito, because he did pretty much the same thing to Richard early on when Carrie and I covered the Shuli math episode, and he did the same thing to Scott the engineer, who asked for like basically an auditing of the whole thing. And said, look, what's with this block party thing? There's a way we can make more money out of this and cut some of our expenses. How are you guys doing this? All he did was ask questions, and she was like, no, you got to accept the gift you're given again.
Yeah.
So,
well, Shuli paid his dues. Okay. So that means he's doing it for 13 years. So he can do 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And so what he was able to do with Richard was to say, yeah, we'll bring you on, but you get paid according to how long you do on stage. He knows that Richard could only do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But he also knew that Richard was the reason why people would show up.
Mm-hmm.
So he used Richard to get the sales and then did a switcheroo and said, well, look, I'm up there doing 45 minutes of, I don't know. I can't
hot
list
jokes.
off any. Yeah. Yeah. And taking the lion's share of the money. And not only that, you're not seeing. I'm not opening the books either.
Yes, and I mean that's not That's lack of transparency is enough to get a lot of enemies really quickly and not to be working for you anymore. So
I just started last week, you know. So it's frustrating when somebody I respect like Artie says stuff like that, you know.
Well, then listen, we should just part ways then.
Well, but I'm not the one going on the air talking shit about you. You're the one talking shit about us.
Would you prefer it if I didn't give you work and I went on and said you were a great comic?
Artie, this has nothing to do with work. This is just me coming to you as a comic to another comic saying, hey, man, that wasn't cool. That has nothing to do with work. I appreciate all the work you give me. I always say thank you every single time. I think I do a great job for you. It has nothing to do with work.
Okay, man. All right.
Whatever.
Fine. Okay. What do you want me to do?
I just wanted to state my case. I just wanted to tell you where I stand. That's all.
I understand.
Okay. Thank you.
Shuli's like a chick.
He really is. They all are. Levy's like a woman too. I mean,
if we sat there, if we got on the air,
play the tape of me on that show. It's so joking around.
But Artie, you don't understand. There's a huge percentage of people that listen to this show that whatever comes out of your mouth is gospel to them.
Okay, this is the same argument. This is the same argument like the last roast. People were afraid to laugh at jokes about me.
I remember that specifically. That was not Daniel Carver. I think it might have been. No, it was the Andy Dick roast specifically. And in the wrap-up show, which have I sent you that one? The Andy Dick post Andy Dick wrap-up show. Bob Levy floated the theory that people in there liked Artie so much they would not laugh at any jokes directed at him. And then it's like, well, and then when Lisa Lampanelli went up and made some jokes and people laughed, Artie was like, well, no one told Lisa's contingent not to laugh at me when she got some hits in. So, and Artie was like, you guys are just trying to make excuses for having shittier jokes. That's basically it.
I would have thought in reality it works the other way. The more likable someone is, the more inclined people are going to laugh when they get goofed on a roast.
Certainly, and also when they see the reaction you're giving in relation to the joke. Like if you laugh at some joke that's directed at you, you're going to increase the laugh almost exponentially. And so, and Artie and Andy Dick, where they're both like, look, you just, you gotta, sometimes these jokes work. Sometimes they don't. Just admit you didn't do as well as you have in the past. And Bob's theory was we need to put in super fans, like real hardcore super fans, which most of those people were. And I remember specifically Artie goes, they want people that'll go in and laugh when they say Artie's a fat fuck. And he's right. He was dead on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In that case. And they want drunk maniacs. And I believe at that time, the Andy Dick stuff was done daytime. So there was no day drinking involved. That's again, that's a hard sell for a roast. You got to get people lubed up for something like that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I don't even know what that is. So ridiculous.
It's Artie. It's absolutely true.
So you think it's affecting your business? You guys do a lot of business. I thought
we do a lot of business.
So
but when you go on, but when you go on the air and go, these guys are the hack pack. That's not an advertisement saying it's a great show. Go buy tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
No, I mean I'm kidding around. I tend.
But what I'm saying is there's
sometimes. Ralph, what do you think?
Sometimes on the Raw Dog Comedy Channel, sometimes I joke around.
Go ahead. What?
Shuli knows what I think. Is it Artie's job to do advertisements for you? I mean, he's making a joke.
No, but does he have to put us down?
Shuli, just let me get my point out. I don't see how you guys can sit. First of all, Artie, the hack pack, that's brilliant.
I mean, whatever.
I don't know how you guys you bust balls, and that's what you do. And I think anybody who listens to this show knows that. It's like do it off the air. I don't get what you're saying.
No,
I mean, it's busting balls.
But we do it in a way where it doesn't affect business, dude. It doesn't. We're all on the same team, man. We're all on the same team, bro. We're all.
So first you say it's about how it affects business. It doesn't. It's not. It's what you think of me. No, now it's about how it affects business. Oh, it's about how it affects the crowd. And they take his word as gospel. So what they're going to give us shit for the next while. Which is it, Shuli? Pick your argument and stick to it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. He said it's not about the money. It's just a personal thing. And now he's saying the opposite. It affects business. But, you know, like you said earlier, we're not going to defend Artie here. I will say that this was such a well-placed comment that Artie made that we're here 16 years later talking about it. And this hack pack thing has followed Shuli around ever since. You go onto Reddit, it's everywhere. It's
tissue at the bottom of his shoe that just you can't kick off.
But it just goes to show how beautifully defined it was in the first place from Artie.
Yep, and believe me, guys,
it fits.
As good as this segment is, and I don't believe it's been edited for Howard TV. It's only about 25 minutes, which includes a couple of minutes of conversation at the end when they get him in the back there. They get Shuli and they talk with him individually. But the wrap-up show segment, which I sent to Len, is a million times better. And it's because they're allowed to breathe a little more, and it's not Howard directing traffic saying, okay, enough of this shit.
Yeah.
So as always.
Together, why would you hammer somebody on the air and say something that's not necessarily true?
But Artie puts himself down.
But you sound
I put myself down all the time. I put
time.
myself down too. All the comics put themselves down.
Julie, you sound whiny. You come off like
Ralph. If anybody would know what a fucking cunt would sound like, it'd be you. So just keep it down.
No, don't do that. And don't call me a cunt.
That might affect Ralph's cunt business.
Sorry.
He's so fucking good. Oh man, God, this is so missed. I mean, this is a legit fight, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you're up against a guy who can talk words around you, like literally whole parades around your head, there's just no winning.
Yeah, this isn't John Hine talking about Sal speaking Italian in a or whatever that thing was.
Oh,
what was that?
The lady when their trip to Miami recently.
Oh,
you tried to watch that.
Oh, just painful. It is painful. I never cease to be amazed at how awful the show is.
Nowadays, yeah.
You know what? I could easily smile in somebody's face one day and then go on the air and trash them, which seems to be the MO around here, and I'm not going to do that.
If a shitty stylist, he'd be upset.
Oh, absolutely. And I've told him that. Oh, sure you do. Sure you do.
You could say that.
Ralph, you remember when we first started, when you first came up here, before even Howard was on, the Serious News team was here working. Ralph gets out of the elevator. One of the reporters goes to interview him, and she goes, you're Howard's makeup artist? And he goes, no, I'm Howard's stylist. And he wouldn't talk to her after that. He refused to interview her.
You know what, Julie? No, she wanted to ask, I didn't know who this fucking broad was. She wanted to ask me questions about the work that I do with Howard, which is private, and I wasn't going to answer a bunch of fucking questions.
So you were being cunty, weren't you?
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were, Ralph.
That's being protective of my client, dummy.
I know. I believe he was being cunty. And this is where, I don't think Shuli's completely full of shit, certainly.
No. And I believe that 100%. I don't think Shuli exaggerated that what he saw there.
No,
at all.
we know enough about Ralph to know how he handles himself and how he takes things personally. I mean, the Bubba Heather Ralph fracas was an example of that. So he easily can get set off.
And the intern who brought him home fries and they weren't right and he went crazy and
that was brutal.
And we all know. Oh, we don't know, but he did talk about his work for Howard that's private.
I love that. They asked him how many hours you put in per week, and he goes, it's tough to say.
It's tough, yeah.
I love that.
I'm being protective of my comedy and my material, and comedy.
With all sincerity, in your opinion, are they kind of hacky? These guys?
No, I said that because I know they're very sensitive to that, and I was kidding around and joking around. But apparently, I don't want to. If
you know what, Artie? Ever since Sal, you said you were dedicated. You're dedicated. You're going to a Moose at Elf farm. You're sleeping through half the show. You're not that fucking talented, Artie. You are so unloyal. It's
see, this aggravates the shit out of me.
Good. I'm glad. I hope it burns your thick fat.
I may not really go to a Moose at Elf farm. That was a joke, too.
You are the biggest mama's boy. Talk about cunts. You, mommy. You'll never have a wife, Artie. You'll never have a wife. You're unloyal. You're not a good friend. You do something good one day, and the next day you pull it out from someone. I wasn't going to call, Artie, but I had to call because you are so unloyal. It sickens me.
Marianne, part of the smelly cunt pack. That's
all right.
She was right.
Yeah.
You'll never have a wife.
Yep. So she should be predicting. She's predicting football matches.
Why did Marianne hate Artie? I never quite understood the origins of that.
She flip flopped when he tried to commit suicide. She called in and she's all wah wah wah. But do you remember the infamous Pittsburgh Pete fight that Artie had with Pittsburgh Pete? I love that one too. And then he threatened to beat up Marianne with Pete's body. And she called in. He was just not in the mood for that shit that day.
Yeah.
And anyway, I don't know exactly. I don't know. It's something about her. She decided she had it in for him. A lot of the whack packers had it in for every certain person, a specific person. It happened to be her for him.
But it's real. I mean,
rather.
Yeah, but it's real, I suppose, is the point. This is before, she's not reading off a script that was emailed to her before the show.
No way.
Like what happens nowadays.
Yeah, I think whatever it is, like as soon as some kind of negativity is put forth, she'll go after. I don't think it's just Artie, but he definitely got hit by her more than most people. So I don't know. I think maybe it's
it was
just
the
being
bro fight.
protective. Could be. That might have been it.
Yep.
Yep.
There you go.
Hey, Howard, can I say something?
Yeah, let's go to Mutt for 1 second.
Okay,
Mutt,
sure.
go ahead.
Hey guys, Shuli, weren't you guys busting my balls on the way I run my website and host my show this weekend?
Were we busting your balls about the way you run your website and how you host your show? I guess so, yeah.
I mean, it was all in good fun, but basically that was an attack on me saying I don't like people have opinions. Dictator.
But do people pay?
Surely, why is that okay? Why do you attack Mutt? It's going to make him feel bad.
Right. Well, I know Mutt's a celebrity, and I apologize.
Well, Mutt is
for
a
that.
celebrity on the channel.
So now the problem is Shuli's trying to joke here, but it's making him look even worse because you know, that Mutt guy, as much of an asshole as he is correct.
Yeah. Well, I think you don't have to be an expert in body language or human behavior to know that when someone repeats the question that's been asked to them, they don't know the answer and they're trying to buy time and they're trying to come up with something. And that's exactly what Shuli does here. He knows he's busted, and that's why he resorts to this. Well, you know, what kind of celebrity are you, or whatever he says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know you're a celebrity.
Well, yeah, and Shuli, talking as a real celebrity, of course, would know, the difference, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shuli, what kind of celebrity are you? You're as big a celebrity as Mutt is.
I don't even see myself as a celebrity.
Well,
man.
then what are we talking to you for?
Well, good question. Why are you having me on your fucking shows then?
I don't know. I
Don't
hired
ask
a
me.
guy a bunch of times, and he's pissed at me.
Well, yeah, because Artie, let me ask you this.
Mutt's making a good point. Everybody is getting a little, I don't know, dude.
What does the word hack mean
This
to you?
hack thing, you guys don't even know what hack means. Sal uses it.
I don't think you know
Whenever
what it
Sal
means.
uses it, he uses it in the wrong. It's so funny.
No, I use it on you. It's right.
But it is some part of Mutt's livelihood when you
Of course
sit there.
it is. Mutt's life, to a certain extent now, is running that
Right, but
website.
but Mutt was on the air with us, number one, who he had a chance to talk and speak his case and say his side of the story.
I didn't say it secretly. I said it on the show that you heard.
Yeah, but first of all, let me finish. Mutt was on the air with us.
Serious. I didn't go on there with the intent.
All right, let's go to
we were
Sal.
playing
Sal wants to.
song
Well,
parodies.
let Sal weigh in on this.
Artie.
Yeah, keep in mind, guys, Mutt, we're going back to Stern Fan Network, and Mutt at the zenith of like the massive largest point of SFN had to get like double servers, triple servers to handle the overload, and he had all kinds of people that he gave mod powers to, and he had to spend a lot of money to make that continue that thing to keep it going because it was that big. It was what Stern wanted to do with his own bulletin board, but didn't want to put money behind it or really be responsible for it or see the negativity that was going to come from it, which eventually happened to Stern Fan Network. But when he said we were offered $1 million for it, I think at one point he might have been offered a good chunk of money for it because of the amount of traffic that place had.
Yeah, and I look, this was before Twitter, Facebook.
Yes.
So the whole thing became fragmented once social media came in.
Certainly.
So it was never you were never going to get that again, and especially considering that Stern's numbers are ever dwindling, especially when he moved to Sirius, they're just going in one direction. A
That's
bit like
right.
Shuli's Patreon.
That's right. And Mutt, if he was offered $500,000 for that website, he should have taken it. I would have in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Done a John Hine on it.
Yeah, completely.
Let Sal win your argument.
Yeah, here we go. I mean, you're a generous guy. You put us on the shows and everything, and you're great to us. But it is mixed signals because the issue here is we're not like you. We're not like you. We're not
mixed signals.
Hold on. Let me explain, please. We don't have the clout you have. We don't have the strength of the audience that you have. You've earned it. But the thing is that we're guys with families and we're trying to make a living. And it would take me 80 shows to make an eighth of what you make. And we put a good ticket out there. We put on a solid show. We travel the country.
Who is saying any different?
But nobody. But when you're going out there, constantly calling Levy a hack. And
Constantly?
Well, he
I say
flipped
that
out
in
and you
the roast.
apologize.
I say it in the roast.
No, but
I say it in the fucking...
But Artie, you apologized to him just last month saying you would never happen again. So I'm just saying that.
Well, okay, let's talk a little bit about this. Okay, yeah, they got to make money. This is another part of the whole thing. It's embarrassing that they have to say that. We're trying to go on the road and make money for our families, meaning basically indicting Stern. He's not paying us enough, so this is a necessary evil. Number two, constantly, I I listened to the whole serious run for up until Artie left. I don't remember him constantly making references to them being hacky. This was one incident on a show that nobody was really listening to. But then because if Artie was anywhere and someone heard it, yeah, they'd hear it, and of course it got back to Shuli as it would anyway. But then he's giving it more play by mentioning it on the air.
Yeah, it's the Streisand effect. A perfect example of it. Yeah. A bit like Gary with the stools. He didn't have to say anything. Just looking at Sal, and I'm thinking, wow, he's talking about his family, and he's a family man, but yet I can never get my head around this. He's a family man, but at the same time, he's on the air. He's talking about the booths. He's taking bits of the Sibian to sniff and smell, and he's Mutt's underage daughter's underwear. Like, this is insane stuff. Mm-hmm. He's doing stand-up. Like the show, he goes, we put a good ticket out there. He was just doing pure racism, pure racist material. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And it was Will that busted them. But it was on that rap show, I believe. But also when Greg Fitzsimmons is on the Greg Fitzsimmons show talking about Sal's act. Sal comes in to defend it. And he's like, what percentage of the show was racist? It's like all of it. Like, these are things that in certain other venues would have got him killed.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, and if you want to talk hack comedy, that's racism is a surefire. Like, that's one of the chapters in it, easily.
Yeah, cheap shots. Yeah, and you look where we are today. Some of the stuff that Sal did, not only would you be cancelled, you'd have police knocking on your door.
Yeah, hate crimes.
Cops. Yeah. And when you look at the show now and look how sanitized it is, and Sal, back in these days, he was getting his testicles shocked, and he was drawing, he was stuff with his head, every week he'd have his
guess what's in my pouch.
Yeah. And nowadays it's all about, Sal in a restaurant talking to a server.
Yeah.
This is your
show. I mean,
crazy.
And guys, and any of those mongoloids out there saying, look, what would you expect? Baloney and on asses? No. There's a happy medium. There's a way to get beyond that and still maintain a certain level of, let's call it edginess for the sake of edginess.
Yeah.
But be smart, and it wouldn't be this show. But mind you, this show was really never about smart comedy. In fact, the smartest bits about it, Billy West and Artie. I mean, Jackie wrote a lot of vaudevillian one-liners, and they could be funny, but unless the guest came in like Gilbert and made the show funny, you were depending on, I don't know, some kind of strange funny rant, some fight that happened in the meantime, maybe an interview with Stuttering John. It was always something else peripheral to the show itself. It was almost never going to come from Howard and Robin.
Stern's own insecurity ensured that no one really smart would ever contribute on air or to the show, because they would always end up, he would be so threatened by it that he would end up falling out, and there would be a lot of passive aggressive behavior, and they were gone.
I think so.
We put on a good quality show for the fans, and we're there for them. And what you saying, Hack Pack, it doesn't help.
All right, let's move on. Let's go back to Steve Langford. Shuli, thank you. I respect what you have to say. Shuli is upset. I could see he didn't crack a smile during that.
I don't think anything.
And he is upset. I see him leaving upset.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think I can work with the guys anymore.
Really?
Right. Well, there you go.
I wrote jokes for your Donald Trump roast that made the Daily News. I wrote jokes for you for what you're laughing at, but I think you take me seriously.
What does that have to do with anything?
But every opportunity you have, you call everybody a hack. The only people you don't call a hack is Nick DiPaolo and Greg Fitzsimmons. But everybody in this family, in this environment, you're constantly digging at and using the excuse it's a joke. So I don't get it. I think.
So do you get the point, Sal?
Yeah, you won a contest.
Yeah, and you just mentioned two comics that are making a living as comics. None of you are.
Yeah.
You're
David Tell and
Nick DiPaolo and Greg Fitzsimmons.
Yeah. Well, they're old pros. Maybe not this stage, but
yeah. Well, at this point they were, and they were making a good enough living, on their own, and they were more than happy to ply that trade. And so, if Hardy's not calling them hacks, Sal, do the math. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Great, and I admire what you do for me. But I just be honest. Like, how do you really feel?
He told you. You're a hack.
Well, no,
all right, I'll take it.
I don't know, Sal. How do I really feel? Can we go to therapy together and figure this out?
All right.
I mean, I don't think there's one person in our audience who, because I said Hack Pack, would not go see those guys perform. I just don't see that. And if they're starting to see it,
I'm not going to go see them because you said that. It leads me to believe they're no good. Why should I waste my time?
It was such a joke. It was.
I'd gather to say that. I would dare say that a lot of them would go because he called them a hack.
I think so, yeah. I probably would, yeah.
Tease them or fucking just call them a hack pack.
Yeah.
But they'd still sell tickets. That's the whole point. Artie's mentioning you.
The one way to truly kind of combat this is not on the air. It's to go out and prove to an audience that you're not a hack. That's the only way you can do that. And I think these guys know they're not going to be able to do that.
Probably not, and certainly not in that area.
The spell is broken.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, think of the fans that are going to see them. Are they like discerning comedy fans, or are they drunk maniacs who just want to get near them and sign and have drinks with them after the show?
Oh, no, yeah. Well, I'm thinking in my head of that famous clip when Scott the engineer got up and did stand-up in Cleveland. And it's probably the most aggressive sounding audience I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Just insane.
Yeah. Well, in Florida, like Lakeland, Florida, I think I'm not sure if that's the one where Sal he fell off stage. I think it's Lakeland, but I'm not 100% sure. And Artie was saying they were just nuts. Some of these places we play, they're just out of control lunatics. And out of control implies they don't really give a fuck what you're saying on stage.
What was the show that Bill Burr did?
Philly.
It's a famous clip. Oh man. Now,
it was an Opie and Anthony tour, and they had a lot of people. And that Philly rant, it's legendary. Actually, there's a lot of reaction videos to that. It's a great rant, and it's funny the way hear him explain. I was just trying to think of whatever sports teams I could think of in Philly to insult, and whatever I knew about Philly. What was Philly famous for? I'm just going to go in on it, and it was brilliant. Yeah, and because it was organic, he didn't pre-plan this. He was just like, he saw the reaction everybody was getting and said, "Fuck this city." And that can be funny. And in the end, I love the best. My favorite part was he was treating it like a hockey game. 1 minute left in the period.
Yeah, he kept counting down. It was great. I saw him live once.
Yeah,
and it's the best show I've ever seen. The best stand-up show I've ever seen, from start to finish. It was absolutely. And it was just perfect. And there was a lot of time during it where I was really kind of thinking about the timing and how he'd put everything together. And it was just it was just so refined. He'd obviously been, out on the road doing this set for a long time. It was just absolutely perfect.
Did he do any crowd working though? Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely killed.
Yeah.
He didn't do a lot of crowd work. He didn't do a lot of crowd work.
How many years ago would this have been?
This would have been, I'm going to say, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
2014, 2015.
Yeah, a lot of the criticism he's getting now, it's more along the lines of his lifestyle, the fact that he's married with kids or a kid. I don't know if he's got multiple children, but he's just an older guy now, and he's not angry. He's not as angry anymore. I'm like, well, do you expect him to be the dragon, breathing fire constantly for the rest of his life? It's exhausting, actually.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, you like, people level that at Howard. They say, well, look, he's just being himself. But the argument is, well, he's not. He never has been himself.
No.
But yeah, with Bill, I don't know. Like, what does he do? Does he phone it in, or does he pretend to be angry? Does he make up stories about his life that, so it's just, I suppose, the difficult one. You're never going to please everyone.
No, certainly not. We're evidence of that, Jesus.
Poking around.
So you're saying you don't really feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, and how many times do we say that shit on roast? We're roasting each other. Bob Levy is the guy who hosts roasts. I mean, can I give you a list of subjects I don't want you to talk about? Sal?
All right, well, Sal is gone. I've dismissed him.
Shuli, you still, sorry. Shuli, you still seem fired up, man.
I am. I'm pissed, man.
But what about, the nature of this show and the nature of hanging out around here is that...
Hanging out is one thing. Going on the air and affecting somebody's business and ticket sales and shit like that, There's a huge portion of this audience, what I was trying to say, that have a sheep mentality, that as soon as they hear something, that's what they believe. They don't question it. They don't think for themselves. 4 months ago, he said Richard was a shitty comic. Then Richard tried to go on stage for 3 shows. They wouldn't even let him get one word out. They kept yelling, he sucks. And he doesn't suck. He's a good comic.
Okay, interesting. That doesn't dovetail well with the whole Shuli math episode we did, in which you claim he didn't really deserve more than he was getting. Like he was paid a flat fee. The other thing is you're insulting the crowd because you're implying they don't have minds of their own by saying they're going to believe whatever Artie says and not come see you. The other thing is you're attributing ticket sales, the blame, like the drop in ticket sales, to solely that, just Artie's words, as opposed to considering maybe we do too many shows in this area and we're trying, much like the Uncle Rico show, to do just to draw too many golden eggs out of this goose.
Yeah. Yeah, and what he's also doing is not taking responsibility for the quality of his own act.
Zero.
He's just saying, look, before he's even gone out on the stage, he's saying, oh, we're going to get booed now. Well, that's up to you. That's up to you if you get booed.
Yeah.
He's new at this. He's learning. And you got to give people a fucking shot. When you do something like that, you take that chance out of our hands.
Can I tell you exactly, now because I'm like what Shuli just sort of talked himself out of right now.
Yeah.
So for the New York Comedy Festival, last year I did Carnegie Hall, right?
Yeah.
So now this year,
I like that this is eating you up.
No, wait. So but listen. So now this year, they want me to host a show, which is going to be like the centerpiece of the whole festival, a town hall where I host it. I come out, I do 15 minutes, and I pick 4 of my favorite comics to showcase that night. On the festival, a big press thing, a whole a lot of attention because they get a lot of press for those festivals. And I honestly, and Teddy can bring in the fucking list. On the list was Shuli and Levy.
Right.
That I pre-wrote down.
The heck?
To have, be... I mean, this is like, you got to put out the friends of yours who you think are really good. This is part of the New York Comedy Festival.
Understood.
It's a full night of stuff. And Teddy has the list. It says Shuli and Levy on it, both of them.
Well, I guess
and
the list
right now, I really don't want to use...
penalize him for saying he's upset that you call him a hack?
Because I think they're being pussies. And I don't feel like I'd
So
rather
you're
work
gonna
with a
now
hack than a
punish
pussy.
Well, it looks like you're working with both. There's, I think, another reason he doesn't want to admit, if he has to go out with comics that are way better, he's going to have to pay them way more money too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And like what you said, Artie's going to have to up his game and not rely on, I don't know, the Cheers song or, the Walking to St. Louis joke or every single bit that he regurgitates, because he had one act and did it for 3 years and people got fed the fuck up. And unfortunately derived a lot of his writing, if you want to call that, from the show. Like any bit that he came up with, what people already heard on the show, they didn't need to go to a comedy club and hear it again.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you were doing a show, what's easier, following Sal or following Levy or following Dave Attell?
Right. And for Artie, there's a no-brainer. I mean, most comics would be afraid to follow Attell. That's how good he is.
Yeah, just don't slip on the blue cheese.
Right. And Yucko's black dildo that was used in some, however it was used, maybe slathering around in the blue cheese. So either way, I think, and also he knows Levy's, whether he thinks he's a hack comic or not, he knows that Levy's going to have X amount of material and that he's been doing forever, and that he'll be able to get the crowd going, and he's a blue comic, and a little of that, like 20 minutes of Levy or 15 minutes of Levy, 5, 10, 8 minutes of Shuli, and that's a show. He knows exactly how it's going to be. So it's predictable. It's in his mind. He knows that's why this works for him, and also he can get away with paying Shuli a lot less money, I think.
To punish them with taking away some money from them?
I mean, and it's not money. It's certainly money, but it's definitely, it would have been a sort of nice, prestigious attention.
Certainly could help him with box office.
He was honest with you.
So why would I think?
Him?
But why would I think? Why would I do that? Why would I keep?
Why do you have
guys,
to punish the guy? He came in honestly and said, "I don't like when you call me a hack."
Because they sound like little cunts.
And you don't want to work with a cunt.
Yeah, I'd rather work with a hack.
Okay.
They sound annoying. You know why? Honestly, I'll tell you why. Because I'm working on eggshells around them.
Okay.
I got to walk on all eggshells now. Am I doing something wrong? Am I insulting these little pussies? Oh. Clean your pussy, Levy.
Ooh. Wow. Cunty.
It really, I don't need that.
You're telling Levy to clean his pussy?
To clean out his twat. I'm sorry, you fucking. I'll give
You're
you.
saying he has a dirty pussy?
I'll give you a list of shit I don't want you fucking talking about. How does that sound?
What is it, Tony? He wants to weigh in on this. Yes, Tone.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
All right, brother.
Hey, man. I want to say about this hack pack thing that they're showing their weakness by being sensitive to it. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about comedy, but I think I know that. You know, Artie is putting them up towards his level by even mentioning to him. It's an open invitation to crack back. And
go
ahead, Art.
No, I'll tell you what. He's making an excellent point too, because, you know, actually, the funny thing is, I do mess around with guys I've known for a long time, calling them hacks, or that was a sort of old, unoriginal thing to do, and with guys like Apollo. And if you're confident enough that you know you're not,
then you shoot back.
You don't get mad.
He's exactly right, and that's the same way when I'm on a music forum, and when people throw, but like you decide, you tell what you like, and all of a sudden something comes at you. I don't give a fuck. I really like it. Really, I know we say often, when you say you don't give a fuck, it means you give a fuck. What I'm saying is that person's opinion is not going to change my opinion of what I like about something. It has no bearing on something intrinsically personal.
Yeah, the only time that can happen is if someone points out something makes a really good observation that you never really noticed before, and then suddenly you're hearing it and you're like, oh, right. Sometimes I find that can happen. But if someone just says, oh, you know, this guy's awful or whatever. Yeah.
It's shit. A blanket statement.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Get out of
here.
Well,
maybe they're not confident.
It's like calling a guy gay and he's mad because he's really gay, you know.
Perfect analogy.
Perfect, yeah.
No, I know you. I know one of the first things in your mind might have been like the Life Beat cupcakes or something. Every bite 5 cents.
I mean, that's a good point.
Maybe Shuli isn't that confident.
Well, he should be. That's what I'm trying to tell him.
All right.
And that's exactly my point, Howard. Is that you know, I mean, if they want to be, and they say it's because Artie has, you know, clout and confidence or whatever, and you know what, if they want to be successful, it's time to step up their game, and at least in that regard. You know?
All right.
My clout ends with this show. I have the same clout they have. I sell tickets because I'm here.
But
He's exactly right, and that ended up to be the case. Now, when he had his own show with Nick, that's something he could play off it too, but he was definitely not making as much money on the Nick and Artie show on the road as he was with Howard.
No, yeah, and a lot of this, like I said earlier, all comes back to just his likability. And you know, it's one thing to have that platform, but it doesn't ensure anything. But if you are someone like Artie who is just relatable to a huge part of the audience, and is with Artie, you know, he would show several sides of himself, and he would be able to laugh at himself. That's something Shuli doesn't do. Shuli's very one-dimensional in that respect. You know, it's all just every story that Shuli tells, Shuli comes out of it. You're expecting him to kind of rip off his top and have a Superman outfit at the end. You know, well, needless to say, I had the last laugh.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's at someone else's expense. And the one thing we're gonna get every single example, every single time he used the airplane joke, and play it back to back to back and see how you guys feel. Imagine if you heard that. It's no different than when Artie would use the, you know, Jew broad fights Dracula's thing, whatever. Like, it really is a funny initial story, but the diminishing returns on that story. There's only so many jokes and stories that you can laugh at every single time, and they're precious few of them. And some of those were not examples of them. A lot of the ones he used.
I think Stern's original reaction to that joke was so he burst out laughing. It was probably the only time he's really laughed at a Shuli joke, I'd imagine. I think to Shuli that was a green light to just run with this one and and this is going to be my Thunder Road. You know what I mean?
I pulled out Excalibur from the stone. Shit. Oh.
Put you up on a pedestal that you're the guy they all want to be.
It's weird. If I left this show,
if you say something bad to them, then they're devastated.
If I left this show, I'd be playing clubs again. I mean, look, that's a hard reality of the business, and so they're on this show and they're making money too. It's all we're all in the same.
Shuli wants to say something.
We're all in the same boat.
Exactly, we're all in the same boat. So why would Artie, let me ask you something. What does the word hack mean to you? You're a comic. You've been doing it for a while. What does the word hack mean to you? When you say that comic's a hack.
An unoriginal thing. To me, it means an unoriginal premise that gets an easy laugh. You pander to the audience.
Okay, so why would you call me and Levy a hack and then sit there and say, oh, I put these guys on this list for this show? Like, make up your mind. Do you respect what we do or don't you? And then fucking don't go on the air and say you don't. Like,
well,
I could have easily gone on another show and trashed you yesterday or started this shit up. I waited to talk to you man to man, face to face.
How did I trash you?
And the other thing is, of course, by the way, guys, he's such an air horse, Shuli, that he was, if this was the way to get it, he was absolutely going to do it.
Yeah, and look, here's the difference. The reason why I already did it is because primarily it was a funny play on words.
Play on words, yeah.
Whack pack, hack pack, yeah. I guarantee you, if Shuli was to trash Artie on some other station, he wouldn't come up with a defining phrase that we're still using today.
Oh God, no! Jesus Christ! I mean, he stopped using Israeli funny a long time ago, and at this point, you know, his jokes revolve around his ethnicity, pot, loserdom, and yet you're closing on. He's got to be 50, or if not 50, then like in the same ballpark, maybe 48, 49, around that ballpark, and you should be writing about some other things. He's got that Shulagy album, which I defy anyone to laugh at. It's on YouTube. The sober show and the wasted show. It doesn't matter if you're sober or wasted. You won't laugh either way. I don't believe. I mean, there's still some people out there. You can claim you're Shuli fans. I guess there's no accounting for taste, but in this quadrant, no, we say no, Shuli, hard no.
Well, there's accounting for YouTube views, and the Shulology or whatever it's called.
Shulagy.
Shulagy. Sorry.
The killed of comedy.
I wonder where he got that idea from. Sternthology, Shulology.
Well, like he's giving a eulogy, so Shulagy.
Oh, sorry. I
It's
didn't realize how clever it was.
Well, yeah, that's. Sorry. I mean, you're talking. He's Oscar Wilde. Yeah. He's Percy Pish Shelley. Christ Almighty.
Saying the hack pack. I understand it's a
I'm kidding around. It was a joke. That's the point.
You always say that when we call you on it. So, and like Howard said, there's always some truth behind every joke. So what do you really feel? Is it the whole group? Is it
you made a joke in the Gary roast that he's a silverback monkey.
Right.
Do you really think that?
But it's a roast.
Tell Gary to his face.
It's a roast.
Dude, that's what I'm talking about. This is a comedy show. I wasn't on the McNeil Lehrer report.
The guy said, who are the killers of comedy? Are those young comics? Who are those guys? You go, oh, I call them the hack pack.
Yeah, it wasn't like that.
Hey, I just got one more thing to say about that. When Artie stops talking about you, then that would be the time to worry.
Thanks, dude.
Good point.
No worries, late.
Fun selling fruit.
Well, I see that you are upset about this, Shuli.
I am, dude. I've been doing it 13 years, man. And one thing I'm not is a hack. I pride myself on my material, my originality, and for somebody to come out and say that I'm a hack, that pisses me off. Absolutely.
All right.
I went on there and said Shuli is a hack.
It sounds like 13 years in the fetal position crying after each show. I mean, if you're paying your dues, shouldn't you have Teflon skin at this point, or Kevlar?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, the entire business is about taking abuse.
Yeah, failing. Hopefully upward.
Constantly. Yeah.
And getting better. Artie talked about it for years, saying like, look, in his first book, you're saying, look, I was doing a cab. I was riding. I was doing a cab. That sounded a little too dirty. I was riding a cab and picking a dead zone so I could go do some sets. And the reception comes back when I drove away, and my dispatcher would say, "Oh, where the what happened? Oh, I was I was in a I was out of commission for a while there." But he went and did the work, and ultimately, he has the goods. He met the right people, and that happens. Sometimes it just doesn't happen, and Shuli's not able to grasp that.
No, it's something I don't think he's still able to get his head around.
No, God, no.
No, but you say that I'm part of this group, the Killers of Comedy. Whether you feel it's one person in the group, two of us, three of us, say what's on your mind, but don't generalize and throw us all in one group and say we're a bunch of hacks.
Howard, I have a lot of good qualities, but a smelly cunt Artie isn't one of them. And you wish your cunt, you big pussy, was as clean as mine because you're the 7th grader. You know how you make a joke? Cunt, pussy,
See, Marianne is not a hack. She doesn't do any easy shit.
Entertaining, Artie. And you know what? You're right. If you didn't have Howard, you'd be in the fucking bar somewhere with the pool table and the walls with the cocaine guy because you're nothing but a low-life asshole.
Ike is on the phone from Mad TV. Ike from Mad TV. Go ahead.
Is this Ike Barinholtz?
Yo, Artie.
Oh, Ike, how you doing?
Ike later would appear on the show himself. I can't remember the circumstances, but he was in studio getting interviewed by Howard years and years later. But this is fantastic when he calls in.
Buddy, man, how you doing? Artie, you're so right, dude. You're so good to these boys, and I talked to a friend of mine who saw the Killers of Comedy in Southern California. Said it was the worst show.
Where? What show was it? Where at in Southern Cali?
Oh God, I can't remember.
Yeah,
what.
exactly.
I like Shuli. I like you. I think you're actually a great comedian.
Thank you.
I like you on the news. Shalom bitch is really played out, but he said
it really is.
He said
that's what hacks do.
He said that was so bad and so racist.
like bad and racist.
Yeah, the family man.
Right, exactly.
There's nothing worse. Artie, there's nothing worse than a guy who's like blue and bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I don't look. That's your opinion, but I happen to know Ike. He's a good guy, but I don't. I'm not at all their shows. I do horrible shows too. I've been drunk, and there's people want their money back constantly.
All right, Ike, thank you very much. Ike from Mad TV.
Brother, love you.
Ike's a good
Thank
guy.
you.
Yeah.
Brian, go ahead. You have the last word on this, and then we have to move along. Robin has news to get to. Yes, Brian.
I just feel if you're comedians, you should have a sense of humor, guys.
Really?
We do, man. I'm saying it again and again and again. It's the same thing.
I mean, if you want to get into
out...
overdone stuff, that guy's right. Coming back from Pittsburgh, I listened to the news. I heard Shalom bitch like 40 times in an hour. It's really, you want to jump out the window. You got douche chills from it.
He's right. He's absolutely right. I did remember hearing that, and he got nailed for that by Howard actually. When he said he came in, and he's like, "Can you explain why that?" He goes, "No, just a sign off so they know it's me. Shalom, bitch." And Howard's going like, I don't know, is it really that funny? Now Howard's no judge of funny, but in this sense, yeah, in this case, he's right.
He really wants to be defined by the fact that he's from Israel. It seems to be such a constant.
Yeah,
I think even his website was called Jews Gone Wild.
Jews Gone Wild or Jew Gone Wild. It's no longer somebody else took it over, I think, because he let it lapse. Like he let the whatever.
Oh yeah.
Of course, when you're making ends meet, the website's the last thing on your mind. But that there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. Like if you're an Italian comic and you make your bones being an Italian comic, or an Asian comic, like a Korean or Japanese comic, and that's the whole genesis of your act. It's one dimensional. It's one note. It's going to be a little brutal unless you're playing to certain crowds, the same that aren't going to challenge you, that are going to identify 100%. But you're limiting yourself actually by doing that. Even in New York City, because they're looking for jokes about Filipinos, Spanish people, Hispanic people. They want to know about, black, white, wasps, everything.
Yeah.
And ultimately personal stuff. And a lot of Shuli's, I believe, is just nonsense more than anything. I don't believe it's derived really from personal anything. So.
Really? What about when the fans come out of your show and say they've heard the same jokes for the past 3 years?
Well, I mean,
What
you
about
know, they shouldn't come to see me twice.
Well, they feel it's played out too, just so you know. FYI.
I'll try. You should listen to some news reports, man. The Shalom bitch thing is like.
Really?
And it said so much. I mean, sometimes he says it like 8 times in a 20-minute period. Biatch, Shalom Biatch, you know.
And I could care less about that. That has no reflection of what kind of comedian I am.
Well, I think it does.
I don't. I don't at all.
I don't think it was funny the first time I heard
If you're empty-headed enough to hear 2 words, shalom, bitch, and then base that on who I am as a comic, then that's your fucking problem. I got no time to impress you or try and work.
I always thought shalom, bitch was sort of a.
Okay. You always thought like I have no time to impress you, but you're saying you considered him a friend before.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So you're bothered by what he said as a friend, but now it doesn't bother you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's contradicting himself a few times. This is what we should ring a bell every time he contradicts himself in this.
We have room in the budget for only 1 bell, and Raven's got it. sorry, guys.
Fun thing.
If it wasn't, I would have gotten a memo of some sort to stop doing it.
I'm just too lazy to write a memo.
All right, I'll stop. Sorry.
No.
Kidding.
Listen to the playback.
All right, Brian. Thank you. Yeah, Clint, you're on the air.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Hey, listen, Shuli, you got to stop fucking crying, man. If you didn't have Howard and Artie, you'd be fucking bagging groceries at Stop and Shop.
Well, and that's what I was doing part-time before I got here. And
we know.
Yeah.
Guys, we're not shitting on like blue collar work, by the way. Don't anybody get the wrong impression here. We're literally saying like this is a guy that somehow just doesn't understand he should be doing something that isn't as demanding mentally.
Yeah, I think what the caller is getting at is that Shuli needs to be put in his place somewhat.
Oh, big time.
And he's got ideas above his station.
Oh, big time. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I realize that, and I appreciate the opportunity that I have, but I'm not going to let somebody talk shit about my comedy and say that I'm not original when I know that I am. I'm sorry. I'm
Again,
going to stand up for myself.
I don't recall saying that.
That's what a hack means.
No,
if Artie called you a nut-hugging pillow fighter, you should be thrilled. It's any kind of promotion for you.
Well, no, not necessarily. Maybe that.
Whether you like them or not.
If that was the case, then I'd come running in here and let them throw things in my ass and let people touch my cock. I'm not. That's not my route. That's not what I do.
Well, so what are you saying? That you're talking about guys and the Killers now.
Right, yeah, you're not.
No, what I'm saying is that there's guys
but I
that
could
do
see
different.
Shuli's point. Like if you went on Letterman and called me a hack, I'd be upset.
Well, I mean,
you can understand that.
And Shuli, and that was a perfect catch, actually. Artie was not too stupid to figure that out. Going after Sal and Richard, essentially, and that betrays Shuli's own feelings about them anyway, and probably his resentment for the fact that Sal and Richard get a huge pop whenever they would play together, regardless of the quality of their act, versus his 13-year black belt in comedy that he's achieved over the years.
Yeah, and he's probably resentful of them because he knows he has to bring them with him in order to go out on the road. It's just he has to,
guaranteed.
Yeah, I think recently on the Jimmy Kimmel show, you got engaged, and I said, what a fruit.
I didn't take offense.
Right, because I was kidding?
Yes, of course.
Get it?
Got it.
Plus, I am a fruit.
True.
Anybody who gets engaged is a fruit.
Yeah, poor
See,
bastard.
there
That was
is
a bad
some
idea.
truth to it.
There is truth in it, though.
Well, that's my point in all
I
this.
hate that it's true.
I think I laughed right after I even said it, and then even after I
did.
It's sort of like they said, "Who are the Killers of comedy?" You say, "Oh, you mean the hacks?"
And he does know who you are. He knew we were kidding around. What the half the shit I said about the host and he said about me, we were busting each other's balls.
Jim, go ahead. Yes, Jim. Nope, Jim's gone. All right, last word. Come on, I really do have to end this. Greg, go ahead. You're on the air in Minneapolis.
Seriously, the Hack Pack should now be called the Pussy Pack, and what a bunch of whiny bitches. How could Artie possibly insult the comedic talents of a half-rate news reporter and a couple of phony phone callers?
Well put.
Yeah. these guys, these callers, I don't believe they're fake, but they know exactly like what they're saying is something. It hasn't just occurred to them. These are thoughts that they've had in their head for a while. I think
they've been loaded and they're dusting off the Winchester.
That's a good point.
All right, listen, Shuli, the people are speaking out. They're saying you're too sensitive. But what do I know? I mean, I understand. I'm a sensitive guy. I understand what you're saying.
Like if somebody said you're unoriginal, you would take offense to that.
I would be offended.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but don't you think you'd be a little...
Because you're unoriginal.
The truth hurts.
It does.
If a radio guy called you unoriginal,
yes.
I mean, would you go on and talk about it?
No, I'd probably,
no, but if the
I wouldn't
radio
give it
guy,
a second thought.
But if the radio guy has a huge percentage of people that hear what he says and believe it the second it comes out of his mouth, wouldn't you be a little upset about that?
I agree with the fact, if you're going to say that I have a unique position where I'm on the mic all the time, I understand that. I didn't say it here. I said it on Raw Dog, where probably the host Pete Dominic's family and you guys is who listens to that show.
I got emails and text messages all day yesterday about it. A bunch of people heard it. They follow you around. Whatever show you go on, they go, Artie's here, Artie's there, and they love you and they listen to you.
I don't think I have enough power to get people not to buy a ticket to see you. You should worry more about
that.
And why would I? Yeah, what would my
That's what I
motive
don't
be?
understand. That's why it's such a mystery to me that you would go on the air and say
I'm
that
not
shit.
doing it with that intent. That's
all right, let's move on. Thank you, Shuli. Artie, I'm sorry we've run out of time for this.
We can't resolve this.
Jules, you're obviously still fired up, man.
I am. I was downstairs smoking a cigarette, and I hear him talking about what gigs I just cost myself, and it's like I didn't do this to fucking. It's not about gigs to me. It's just about who I am.
You just said it's about ticket sales, you fucking idiot.
Ding, ding, ding. Wow. He is flipping and flopping the whole time. He's going back and forth between this is about our friendship, this isn't about money, this isn't about gigs, this is about selling tickets.
He's a gutted cod flapping around on the dock right now. Now I know he's referencing the gigs Artie was going to bring him on, but he did originally say it is about gigs, and when people are losing, they're not buying tickets to see us, basically. So, there's the stress of them maybe not selling as many tickets anymore, and I don't think it has anything to do with what Artie said.
Sure, yeah. I think Shuli ran this over in his head before he went in. Maybe the night before, he ran over how this was going to go, and I think he's realized
never planned. What's the slogan? Never planned.
Never planned. Never personal. Never funny.
Never funny.
Or always funny. Always funny. Sorry.
Always funny. Yeah. No, I think you were right the first time. Go ahead.
but yeah, clearly this did not go the way he thought it would. It is like the Tyson quote. Everyone has a plan till you get punched in the face. But you can see with his body language there, he's defeated.
Completely.
He's defeated. Yeah.
Yep.
As a comic.
It's a respect issue.
Yeah, and it's like, I know a lot of people think, he's crying, he's too sensitive. My point is this, I'm going to stand by who I am as a comic, and if he wants to say that shit, he can say it. But, people come out, check out the show, see for yourself. And one thing I know is I'm not a hack. I take very much offense to that. And,
I'm not a hack it's about as accurate as I'm a comedian.
I'm not a crook.
Yeah. like I believe him I'm not a hack is, that's him saying I am a hack and believing it. Like he's totally like in the dumps now emotionally. But in terms of comedian, you're trying to convince yourself you're a comedian by saying it. Like I'm Beth Stern. I'm a model. I'm Howard. Yeah. I'm straight. I'm married. Right.
What can I say? Maybe I'll start going on other shows and talking about what the audience tells me after his shows. See how that affects him. See maybe he might be a little cunty, maybe a little pussy, because I don't care what he says. Once you start talking about a comic material on the air, you get sensitive about that. And so
he won't be funny though, Shuli. This is the difference. Yeah. Artie was funny when Artie said the hack pack. That got a laugh. When you go on another show and trash Artie, you will not. You won't get a laugh.
No, he never unlocked that door. And I love Will. That must be this Will behind.
Is that Will?
I think so. Doing the mock crying.
That's his deal.
Now, you already kept reiterating that he was just kidding.
Well, yeah, I always say, he's always kidding when people hear it, or if it's, if he gets caught, then it's a joke. If nobody would have heard that, nobody would have sent me a message or anything. Nobody would have talked about it. And like I said before, there's definitely some truth in everything. So, look, I don't know if he feels this way about the whole group or certain people in the group, but he definitely put us all in one big pot and said that we're a bunch of hacks, and that's not cool, man. And he knows the influence he has on fans. Him and Howard, they know what they say goes a long way with the fans. So
now do you think that
it says I have a vagina? See, Will's getting laughs and he's not saying a fucking thing.
He's funnier than Shuli.
Easily. And the other thing is, you're not really, Shuli's being disingenuous here. He's not upset that he called them the Hack Pack. He's upset that he's lumped in with the Hack Pack. Let's be honest.
Of course. He's trying to say, look, I'm just looking out for it's not about me. I can take it. I'm just looking out for the up and comers. He's like, he treats Richard Christie, he's trying to claim that he's nurturing him, and giving him pointers. And it's his confidence I'm worried about. He goes out on stage and he can't even get through a line. Poor Richard. Meanwhile, he doesn't give a shit.
So this is part one, guys. We hope you've enjoyed it. Len, thanks so much for sitting in on this one. And I hope you had a good time dissecting this slab of unfunny shit.
Oh, it's a classic clip. Anytime, like I said, Artie is always worth the ticket price. Just don't go and see him twice.
No, exactly. And anytime we can discuss Artie while shitting on Shuli, it's a welcome task indeed. Yeah. At any rate, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed it. Check us out on Patreon; it's worth your while. And try out the Black Kluge tier, or at least the tier before. The $2.50 gets a free Sundays and 2 of the extra episodes, as well as the other Sundays that you're missing regularly. Take care, guys. We love you.
Scott Weill and the Stone Temple Pilots. There's a band that, God, I just could give a rat's ass about.
I mean, what is that? What are you learning from?
Why use it?
This is no wonder people like this special. It's the anti-special. There's nothing special about these guys.
I really, they're one of those bands I never got.